Good morning, everyone. This is Bob Pompiani. Missy Matthews will join us shortly. We're here live at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex as the Steelers get ready for a Sunday night game now with the Baltimore Ravens coming off a very moving, very emotional tribute to Franco Harris with a 13-10 win on Saturday night in Pittsburgh. The Steelers still mathematically alive. They're going to need a lot of help along the way, but for them, they just got to take care of business this week on Sunday night in Baltimore. Mike Tomlin is standing by, and he will now talk about what happened last week and also look ahead to the Ravens game. Let's go across the way to hear from head coach Mike Tomlin.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a brief synopsis of our last performance, although it seems like it's a long time ago now as we sit here. As I mentioned post-game, I was just really appreciative of, number one, the environment. I think we all had a certain level of anticipation of the type of environment we was going to be in, and I think that aided us in terms of preparing ourselves and the players for it, so that we could appreciate it and not fight against it, but enjoy it, while at the same time being able to be collectively focused on the task at hand, or our component of it, which is obviously playing winning football. And I just can't say enough about the guys in terms of their ability to absorb that responsibility while at the same time staying focused and making the required plays to win the game. Specifically in regards to the game, I thought, starting first with defense, obviously I thought we had a really good performance top to bottom. If you look at it in totality, area of needed improvement, I thought we could start faster. And I think there's been several instances during the course of the year where we hadn't started fast and we've settled down and end up playing good ball, but sometimes it's more significant than others, and it could have been significant in that game. They were a team that played behind their running game and was capable of possessing the ball, much like this game that we're getting ready to go into. And when you're playing in limited possession football games, like potentially we were playing in Carolina, like we're potentially going to be in this week, people that play behind their running game and try to possess the ball, you can't have slow starts. You just don't want to play from that posture. It aids them in their ability to play like that. And so we got to analyze that component of it. But, boy, we had some positive things to build upon and some playmaking. I thought we had some backups, man, ascend and contribute to our efforts. We had some attrition in game. Trey Norwood came into the game preparing to play a lot because of Edmonds' lack of availability. He goes down in game, and then Elijah gets an opportunity to play. And I think that's kind of just been reflective of that secondary group. We've had some instances where our depth has been challenged. I think one game, Tampa, I think we had a lot of people out. And so just can't say enough about how that collective is able to show their collective preparedness and work in those moments when our depth gets challenged. On the offensive side of the ball, we left points out there. I thought we moved the ball rather fluidly in the freewheeling zone. I think we stalled some in some red zone areas. Not anything mystical, drop passes and lack of execution, if you will. We turned the ball over in the red area. We can't do that. But largely, I saw some real positive things. It's really cool to kind of be in a moment with that unit and recognize the gravity of it. When we were 76 yards or so away from victory before we took the field, we kind of gathered and said, man, this is a growth opportunity. This is an opportunity to display our growth, to show people where we are in terms of the ground we've covered. And everybody to a man agreed to that. And they went out there and displayed that, and made plays and pushed the ball down the field. And that's what you do. That's what professionals do, quality professional individuals, quality professional units. They rise up in those weighty moments and deliver, and they did. And there are really probably some positive consequences for that as we move forward. There's growth, collective growth associated with that as you move forward. It's a place to hang your hat. That knowledge of being able to get things done in that way, I think, is significant for individuals and collectives. In the special teams game, we missed a couple kicks, man. And when you're in a limited possession game, you can't do that. And so I was thankful that Boz was able to make a couple, but we got to have the ones we missed, and that's just the reality of it, particularly as you lean in on a game like this one. These are always one-score type of games, and leaving 6 points out there would be significant. And so we got to get back to work and make sure we're really solid in that phase of the game, not only just in the field goal component of it, but all areas of the kicking game. And when you're playing Baltimore and they got Tucker and you're in these one-score games, you know the field positioning component of it is going to be big. And so all aspects of the special teams are big, the return game, the net punting, and things of that nature. From a health standpoint, before I get into specifically regarding Baltimore, Marcus Allen had bicep surgery yesterday, and he's in the process of recovery. We got a couple of guys who are dealing with injury, and we'll let their level of participation and the quality of their participation be our guide in terms of their availability. Miles Jack dealing with his groin continually, and Trey Norwood with the hamstring that he sustained in game. Now on to Baltimore. As I mentioned earlier, man, they play an attrition game. They play a limited possession game. They run the ball extremely well. They got a very diverse running attack. They challenge you with personnel groupings and pre-snap shifts and motions, all of which we're familiar with, but being familiar with doesn't necessarily solve the issues. You got to play really good football. And so we're readying ourselves for that as we prepare. We also acknowledge, man, that Mark Andrews is a significant guy for them in the passing game. He always has been, and even through some of their quarterback instability, continues to be. Dangerous vertical threat. I think to label him as a tight end is kind of, it's kind of disrespectful to his talents. He's kind of a number one receiving option. He's like Travis Kelce, if you will, or that young guy in Atlanta. Their skill set and the plays that they make are kind of caged in if you describe them in a tight end sort of way. And so we've got some work there to try to minimize him. We got to familiarize ourselves with some new weapons they have. Sammy Watkins is an acquisition, a veteran guy that knows how to play, and we should be prepared for them to get contributions from him. Deshaun Jackson obviously was a guy that they had just acquired prior to our last meeting, and anytime you're playing veterans in a hotly contested matchup, man, the stage is not going to be too big for those gentlemen. And so we better acknowledge what they're capable of and how they divide the labor up in that area. On defense, man, I just really think it all starts with their linebacker tandem. We knew that the acquisition of Smith was significant. I think after having been in the stadium with them, you really feel it. I think the analytics bears that out, but it goes beyond just the numbers. I just think there's a presence there. There's leadership. There's communication. I think when they work in tandem the way that he and Queen do, they're a formidable bunch, man. They utilize them on possession downs when most people are going to dime and quarters, and that speaks to their athleticism and their talents, the fact that they leave those guys on the field the way that they do. And I think their productivity kind of justifies it. I mean, both guys had interceptions against us the last time we played them. They're just really quality, capable players. We're going to have our hands full there. But they got a lot of quality players on their defense, whether it's Calais up front and others, Houston and others, Marlon, Humphreys. They're a top-notch group, although their coordinator is new. He's not new to Baltimore. They got continuity that goes beyond a first-year coordinator. We talked about that last time, and I think that certain things that are Baltimore are prevalent regardless of coordinator or year. I just think that that's just a component of the continuity that is Harbs and that group. They're always very sound in the kicking game. I mentioned Tucker earlier. He's special. The field positioning component, their ability to score when they're at or around midfield because of his talents, you have to respect. He really limits you in the kickoff return game if he so chooses. He can put all the balls out of the back of the end zone if he so chooses. They're a really rock-solid group in that area. And so we're excited about this matchup. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with us. I think we're all familiar with being in significant games. And so, the new Steeler, the young Steeler, we'll kind of educate them, as I'm sure they will, the new or the young Raven. I think this is the 10th time that Harbs and I have played Sunday night ball together. He's an awesome dance partner. They're an awesome dance partner. It's just good to be in significant games. When I got the call the other night that the game was flexed, man, I didn't hate that. I love that. If your games are not getting flexed this time of year, you're not doing it right. You're not in significant ones, and so we don't run from that. We run to that, although we do respect their environment and the hostility of that environment on Sunday Night Football. We're not going to hate the fact that we're there. We're going to embrace that and smile in the face of the adversity that those variables create. I'll pause and open up for questions.
Mike, you didn't mention Terrell Edmonds' status, and when you use KZ in his position, does it change what Minka has to do?
We move Mika around week to week based on game planning, and it doesn't have a lot to do with who his partner may be. Edmonds is versatile in that way, allows us to do that. KZ is versatile in that way and allows us to do that. I'm assuming that TE is going to push back toward availability, but I just didn't want to be presumptuous. We'll let his participation and the quality of his participation be our guide, but I fully expect him to be available to us.
Like you talked about the growth that some guys collectively and individually displayed. When we asked them about that, a lot of guys pinpointed the bye week as maybe an inflection point. But the things you guys achieved during that period that helped set the stage for the second half here?
It's not necessarily physical work. Sometimes it's just having a pause in the action where you can analyze and acknowledge where you are positively, negatively, and make a commitment to doing what's required to get better, or lean on your positives and work to minimize your negatives. And that's what we did in all three phases. And I give the guys credit, man, just their general receptiveness to it and the changes that we did make, they got behind. And plans are great, but the execution of plans are what makes plans special. And they've done a really nice job of kind of doing some of the things that we've highlighted.
Mike, on the topic of growth, could you have predicted from the beginning of the season to now, especially with the rookie quarterback, just the amount of growth that you've been able to see?
Yes. That's why we work every day. We're really intentional about the environment that we create. It's reasonable to expect guys to get better. Very reasonable.
What's the dynamic like whenever you play a team that you just played a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, and how does it affect the type of adjustments that you guys make based on?
I've been in this league long enough to know that, man, you could roll two teams out on back-to-back days and the game could unfold differently. And so, although we did play them a couple of weeks ago and there's some things to be gleaned from that, I don't think either party is hanging their hat on how that transpired or that component of it. I just think that, particularly in today's scheduling, it happens every year, particularly backloaded divisional games. We're playing, one of these divisional teams in a 2 or 3 week span. It seems like just about every December or so. So I don't think it's new to us. I don't think it's new to any of us in the NFL. But I think we all acknowledge that the texture of one game doesn't necessarily dictate the texture of another.
Speaking of being in the league long enough, in the time you've been in the league, is it any more difficult or complex trying to defend a running game?
It's probably more so today because of quarterback mobility, the design quarterback run component of it. It's 11-on-11 football. It's mathematics. Traditional offenses, non-running quarterbacks, they play with 10 essentially in the running game. When you have quarterback mobility and the willingness to use it, you play with 11. And so whether the quarterback has the ball or not, you have to account for him. And so obviously that makes run defense more challenging. Obviously, that's why teams with quarterback mobility perform really well in running the ball. Chicago has their struggles, but they're a challenging run team because they got quarterback mobility, for example.
Teams, coach, come back to the run now?
I just think the more you see quarterback mobility, and if you look at college football or high school football for that matter, they're the best athletes on the team. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that not only to continue, but to expand.
Along those lines then, as you have seen now Huntley twice playing for Jackson, are you noticing is there a lot of difference in how they approach their run game? Are they leaning more on the backs when Huntley is in there, and does that make it any more of a challenging dynamic to prepare?
No, I think that it's very similar in terms of their ability to utilize the quarterback position by design or to make sure you're responsible for it. And so whether or not the quarterback is carrying the ball or not, you have to be responsible for them as they carry out play fakes and so forth that mirror other coordinated runs. And so whether it's Huntley or Jackson, all of those things have been very similar.
Mike,
What did you learn from that tape that you feel is carried over defensively as far as stopping the run, and how does that play?
We'll see. You know, you like to think you learn lessons, but the application of those lessons really is the display of learning, and so we'll see.
Mike, Rob Spillane hasn't left the field on defense the last 2 weeks. Is that because of the run aspect, or is that more because of the quarterbacks aren't as mobile as maybe what you?
It's all of the above, man. We just like what Rob has been doing. He plays physical. Rob is a guy that has been in continual growth since he's been here. Coming in as an undrafted guy and practice squatter and working his way through, making the team and becoming a core teamer and part-time defender, and now increasingly so, almost an every down defender. I just think what you're seeing is the maturation or growth process of a quality professional, no different than Alex Highsmith, for example. We believe in being a part of the development of guys and watching them grow and develop within a system of football, and we expect them to get better. As we were talking about the other discussion, the position is irrelevant. We expect guys to get better every day and those results to show in their play.
Mike, surely your players know the situation and what it needs to get into the playoffs. Do you even venture down that road and mention it?
No, we're going to focus on the things that were in our control, and that's our preparation and then what we do inside the stadium on Sunday night. We acknowledge all those scenarios and things exist, but all of those scenarios and things have existed since September 11th, since we started the season. Every time you step on the field, there's high urgency. You get 17 opportunities to state a case for yourself. We have lived in that urgency. We understand it. So we're not going to waste any time talking about it. We didn't waste any time talking about it in September. We're going to stay focused on preparing and then ultimately playing this game.
This might go back to what Jeff asked, but to the point about the rush defense getting better after that Baltimore game, did you find that tape to be teach tape in the sense that they saw X and O things that they were doing poorly and needed to improve upon, or was it just motivational in the sense that, hey, look, this could be a tilting point for the rest of our season, this aspect of our game?
You know, I don't know that was a fork in the road, if you will, for our run defense. More than anything, I thought we had a bad day. I think our run defense has been really solid over the second half of the year. It wasn't reflected in our play that day. There's nothing we can do about that. That tape's in the can. We're preparing for this tape that we're going to put out on Sunday night.
Mike, you mentioned the stuff that Roquan and Queen can do. How do you minimize their impact in a game?
You don't. You know, obviously we got to be sharp. We got to try to get hats on them and things of that nature, but they're going to be on the field just about all circumstances. It's not personnel groupings and things of that nature that take them off the field and minimize them in that way. They're just really quality players.
Anything else?
Mike, you planning to head over to Acrisure later today?
Yes.
Also, just to follow up on that, we heard a couple inklings of who may have got the game ball on Saturday.
I'm going to leave that business in-house.
You always talk about the weighty moments, the tilting moments in a game. What did you like the most about that drive that the offense put together at the end of the game, and what gelled there that hadn't perhaps in the rest of the game?
You know, I don't know about relative to the rest of the game, but when you're in those weighty moments and you're looking around at people, you like to feel their presence. And in a lot of instances, I did. I didn't see big eyes. I saw sure eyes. I saw guys that understood what was at stake and guys that looked prepared to go do it. Now, you got to go do it, but I like the feel of the group leading up to it.
Mike, was part of that growth that you saw, it's a rookie quarterback, it's a rookie receiver, second-year tight end, it's your young people responding.
Yeah, second-year running back who was big in the check down game in that drive, and so you can't run away from that. You can't act like those realities don't exist. But I've been pretty consistent in my messaging. I acknowledge that in a lot of ways those individuals and that collective is in the process of growth. But while doing so, I'll continue to acknowledge that they're good enough to win while doing so. And we don't grade on a curve in terms of what we expect in terms of the outcome of games.
Najee was involved in the pass game more so than any point this year, much like last year. Was it a concentrated effort, circumstantial?
Probably a little bit of both, yes.
I think that's 2 fourth-quarter drives by Kenny. You always said he had that look, that moxie. Where does that come from?
I imagine he was born with it, man. I know that it's not the first time I've seen it. I know it's not the first time that people from Western PA have seen it. We've seen him do it next door. I think that's why we had such a great deal of comfort in his intangible quality. And from a draft evaluation perspective, we were in close proximity to it. And when you're in close proximity to it, it becomes less intangible. You can almost feel it. It is real. I don't think any of us are surprised by it.
Anything else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
We bring in Missy Matthews, and Missy, interesting. This is one I haven't heard before from Mike Tomlin. He says, I didn't see big eyes, I saw sure eyes. Talking about the young guys on that last drive of 76 yards on Saturday night. Sure eyes. They were confident. I think he likes the growth that he's seen from these guys.
And it's been something that we've all been waiting for all season, knowing that once Kenny Pickett got in, you had a rookie quarterback, but just all of the young guys on the offense. The defense was more of the veteran group heading into this season, and to be able to have the growth opportunity, as everybody said after the game, good to see that they now know, hey, if we're in this situation again, remember what we did on Christmas Eve, to know that they can do it again.
Yeah, you see it out here in practice all the time, but it's different when you get a chance to do it in the games. You know, he always talks about in stadium. Well, that experience has got to be invaluable. You can do it out here 100 times, but when you do it when the lights are on in that moment against that team, knowing that both teams are playing for their playoff survival, pretty impressive stuff.
Right, and I think, 7 shots is one of the popular drills that everybody talks about from practice that they do going back to training camp, maybe not so much in the regular season, but it prepares them for opportunities like that. And luckily it worked out in the Steelers' favor and they got the win, and it was just, a bittersweet night, but it had a happy ending. And it was great to see that it was the young guys on the offense working together, even not on this drive, but Connor Hayward, he kind of iced the game once they got the ball back thanks to that Cam Sutton interception with that jet sweep. He said he's never run one in his life, but they practiced it occasionally. So it was good to see just all those contributions, especially on the offense, because the defense played lights out other than that first drive where the Raiders were able to score.
What a throw that was by Pickett. He looked off the safety, kept them there for just a split second, and that's sometimes all it takes when you're trying to, thread it in there between two defensive guys. But, man, that was an impressive drive, and what an emotional ending for it on a night where they end up scoring 13 points. Go figure, huh? 50 years ago, it was 13 points against the Raiders, and it was an immaculate reception that did it. This wasn't obviously as immaculate, but it was a reception that people will remember for a long time.
Right, and I think it was something this team needed, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It has been an up and down season. They've only stacked wins once, and just knowing the adversity that they face, not being able to gel, and even just from earlier in the game, it just felt like the offense could not get going. Even Chris Boswell was missing field goals. It was just not an on night for them. So to be able to end it that way, that was a good thing.
We have a lot coming up. We'll take a look back at some of the best of this Mike Tomlin press conference, and also we'll do something that he doesn't want to do, but we will do. We'll look ahead a little bit at other matchups that have to happen and tiebreakers and all that kind of stuff. What will it take for the Steelers to come all the way back from 2-6 to get to a playoff spot? We'll talk about that when we continue right here with the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms. Don't go away.
Could your favorite casino app be even better and faster than ever? You bet. Because the all-new BetParks app has been built around what you really want. With easier sign-up, faster withdrawals, and all the slots and table games you love. Plus, make your first deposit and get a 100% bonus match up to $750. And 500 free spins. So, are all of your favorite games just a tap away? You bet. BetParks.
Starting with the moment when you carried the 32 flag out, what kind of emotions, did that elicit, and how much were you guys playing for Franco tonight?
Coach T, he doesn't like to get into dedicating the game to a certain person because it can go one or two ways. But I think for us it was just a tip of the cap to, not only just a Steeler legend, but just a great man. Person in the community who you could always count on, a guy that even when he retired, he still wanted to be your teammate. And I could say for my time being here, Franco has welcomed me with open arms. It was with everything building up to this and getting a chance to talk to Franco, you know, I think there's so many joyous moments we've had with him, and you know, it hurt so many in this community to lose a guy like that. But you knew he lived a full life, and you knew he was loved by so many people. You know, there's so many outstanding men that love him. Mean Joe, Mel Blount, countless others, Terry Bradshaw. You know, they talk to Mike T. All you know, myself, Najee Harris. Decades and decades go on, but we still cared for a man that brought so much to us. And you know, that to just say that we loved him, we'll continue to love him, and we appreciate all that he's done for us.
Were you playing with any more energy or emotion than usual? You look like you had a pretty strong motor.
Got a good night of sleep. You know, got a little nap in the middle of the day. Kids weren't jumping too much on me. I got to wrap some presents when I get home.
But largely, I saw some real positive things. It's really cool to kind of be in a moment with that unit and recognize the gravity of it. When we were 76 yards or so away from victory before we took the field, we kind of gathered and said, man, this is a growth opportunity. This is an opportunity to display our growth, to show people where we are in terms of the ground we've covered. And everybody to a man agreed to that. And they went out there and displayed that, made plays and push the ball down the field, and that's what you do. That's what professionals do, quality professional individuals, quality professional units. They rise up in those weighty moments and deliver, and they did. And
the great thing about that, all first and second year players, all those skilled people contributed on that drive, Missy, and it starts with Kenny Pickett, but it goes beyond that. Najee Harris obviously was hampered early in the season with his foot, but ever since he's been active in the pass game, more so in the last couple of weeks, and he's coming up with, on average, 4.2 per game over the last 6 games. That's pretty impressive. And it also talks about the offensive line, which has gotten better.
Right, and in terms of Najee, I love that, you know, he was involved more in the passing game, the most targets he's received all season. I think that's something that was maybe underutilized a little bit earlier that could have helped this offense get going. But specifically on this drive, I thought it was also special. You have Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, guys that were extremely close to Franco Harris, who had relationships with them, whether it was from Penn State. Najee just, you know, taking him under his wing from Franco to Najee. I just thought that was kind of cool as well. And he also announced Pat Freiermuth during the draft, and same with Kenny Pickett. So it just had that added special touch to it. And, you know, we have seen, as you said, in terms of the run game, especially with Najee Harris, after not being able to get the run game going, the O-line has gelled more and played better. And they did struggle a little bit at parts of this game, but it was good to see him get back, and who doesn't love when he hurdles a guy?
Well, some people say that maybe is inviting an injury, but Mike Tomlin seems to appreciate the athleticism that comes with that. Now that was, you know, a throw that could have been intercepted there, but one of the few that were off the mark by Kenny Pickett. That one with Freiermuth at the end that we just saw, where he was right near the out of bounds. He bobbled it at first, but he got his elbow down. That was huge, and he was, you know, he's becoming more and more the target that you want in the middle of the field. And then checkdowns. There were a lot of them in this game, but, you know, as a smart quarterback, if there's nothing down the field, and maybe they should throw more down the field as Kenny Pickett's career goes on, those are important too. If that's what the defense will give you, you just try to keep those sticks moving.
Right, and I know we say it, you know, day after day, week after week, but George Pickens is just one of those guys you want to see targeted just a little bit more. It just seems that, especially with Kenny, they have this special connection, being rookies or whatever. And he's just one of those guys that, you know, even the last time they played the Ravens, their DBs were talking about how hard it is to go against him. And usually if it's a 50-50 ball or a combat catch, George Pickens comes up with it.
You saw that last play by Najee Harris too. He was, they threw the ball to him, and it was about 5 yards short of the first down. He got 14 yards after the catch, and there were a wall of Raiders waiting for him. He still turned that into a really big play. And then look at the hands there by Freiermuth. And again, I would expect next year this guy's going to become one of those tight ends that we talk about, nationally, that he's, emerging as a Mark Andrews, as, Travis Kelce. Maybe not to that level, but he's gaining every single year.
Yeah, a Pro Bowl alternate, and I think, he does have those stats that is going to get him to that level. Even just go back to his rookie year last year, Ben Roethlisberger loved him and helped involve him. I remember, being in Cleveland, I think it was Halloween Day, and just the incredible catch he made in the end zone. I think it was his first touchdown. I just think Freiermuth has continued to improve and get better at things, and obviously changing quarterbacks, it hasn't, hampered him at all. He just continues to be this safety blanket.
And after the quarterback sneak came this throw to win it on Saturday night, and a beautiful route running there by George Pickens, but the throw had to be perfect. There's not much room there for error, and he put it right on the money, looked off the safety. But how about those quarterback sneaks? He's like 1,000%, and I don't know if I'd ever do anything else on 4th and 1, unless Derek Watt had his streak stopped in this game, because he was good at it.
He did, yeah. I think he's now 6
6
or
of 7, yeah.
Right. I also I wasn't sure if it was that one. I was at the game, obviously, so I didn't hear, Kenny do the Franco at the line, and that was before one of the sneaks. And, as soon as I saw Twitter after the game, that was something special that they added. You didn't know if you'd get to it, but of course it was caught on TV.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin had some praise, not only for this entire offensive group in that drive, but also specifically Kenny Pickett. He was asked about what qualities he saw over the years watching him right next door here at Pitt, and this is what he had to say.
I imagine he was born with it, man. I know that it's not the first time I've seen it. I know it's not the first time that people from Western PA have seen it. We've seen him do it next door. I think that's why we had such a great deal of comfort in his intangible quality. And from a draft evaluation perspective, we were in close proximity to it. And when you're in close proximity to it, it becomes less intangible. You can almost feel it. It is real. I don't think any of us are surprised by it.
And that was one of the things that the Steelers saw and coveted in Kenny Pickett, that other teams who had clear quarterback needs drafting ahead of the Steelers ignored, which I was a little surprised, because I did think he was going to go ahead of when they picked. When it came down to 20, it was like, okay, eye-opening here. This guy's available. Are you going to take him? And when you deal with 5 years of a maturation. Conversely, Missy, we've seen too many young guys come in. The Jets are having problems right now with Zach Wilson. You've seen Trey Lance injured, but these guys don't have a big college resume, and staying around, I think, really helped Kenny Pickett.
For sure, and it is such an inexact science when it comes to the draft, and it's all about where are you in terms of where you can go. I feel like, somebody just tweeted, because J.J. Watt announced he's retiring after the season, hey, Blaine Gabbert was selected right before him. You can go back and do this all the time. But I do think, the Steelers, as Coach Tomlin said, had a front row seat to what Kenny was doing, playing in a pro offense at Pitt and being able to continue to grow year after year. And I'm sure COVID screwed things up for a lot of guys that were in college at the time, with, some leagues playing, some not. But for Kenny Pickett, it worked out, and I don't think anybody thought that at pick 20 the Steelers were going to have a chance to get him, knowing that there were teams like New Orleans and whatnot ahead of him who needed a quarterback.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And now many of these teams may be looking back and saying, uh-oh, we should have done this. But again, it's only 1 year. There's still a lot of growth and a lot of things that have to happen. But certainly all of this experience, I think, will springboard them as an offense into next year. And if he didn't get this opportunity to play, who knows? That would have stalled that process a little bit, at least at the beginning of next year. So I think 2023 should be, this offense should be looked at as one of the better ones upcoming in the AFC North.
Well, Kenny Pickett was, taking third-team reps all from training camp and into the regular season. So I think the good thing is, once he did take over, it was a very tough slate of games where he was the starter. His first start was in Buffalo. But I think the bye week was a chance to reset. They did a lot of good things in terms of, getting the run game going, the O-line playing better, Kenny not turning the ball over as much. And we did see one against the Raiders, but he had a really nice streak going all the way back to week 8 in the Philadelphia Eagles game of not throwing an interception, something that maybe sometimes he's a little too cautious and will throw it out of bounds just because he's not seeing something. But I think, it's better to be doing it this way than what we saw prior to the Steelers bye week.
There's no question, and it just amounts to continual growth, as Mike Tomlin has talked about. Can't say enough about their offensive line, too. I think Okorafor is another guy. A lot of people when the Steelers signed him thought maybe that was too much money. We haven't mentioned his name all year. Normally, when you're talking about offensive linemen, that's a good thing.
No, for sure. And, you know, it's a different group. It's a young group. I think, you know, even go back to last year, Dan Moore was kind of thrown in there with the Zach Banner injury. So things have not been a cohesive unit. And I think, you know, the Steelers fans and media are so used to when you had the Marquise Pounceys, Dave DeCastro, the group that was just together for so long and they were able to grow together and they were just, you didn't even talk about them because you just expected them to be great. So it is a little bit of a transition at that position as well, but it's something that, you know, they have seen the growth throughout the season.
Yes, the growth is very much available when you watch the Steelers play, and they're going to need more of that coming up this Sunday night against the Ravens. They have to win out and hope some other things happen. We'll discuss that. We'll also take a look at the Steeler defense, which was really good after that first drive against the Raiders. They gave up nothing. We'll talk about some of the key playmakers there as we continue with our coverage of the Mike Tomlin press conference right here live on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
Welcome back to Ford Truck Talk. Today we're looking at the new F-150.
The official truck of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow, did you see that lane change?
Another smooth play by the F-150 with great execution of that parallel park job.
Absolutely stunning.
Newcomers, take note.
And now you too can win this Ford F-150.
Professional, show-stopping, built Ford tough. But we shouldn't expect anything else from the best-selling trucks in Pittsburgh.
What turned and clicked on that final drive?
Yeah, I mean, we were moving the ball well, and then, you know, we stalled in the red zone. You know, it was just something, I thought we got behind the chains. We had some penalty issues. You know, I want to watch the tape and see, you know, assignment-wise how we were, but we just, you know, we were moving it well, and then we got down there and we just kind of stalled out. So, you know, it came together at the end. All that matters, we got the W, but there's definitely things that we need to improve on.
Kenny, how would you describe the emotion of the night?
Yeah, you try to, you know, keep your emotion together, right? I mean, you got to stay even keel throughout it, but you know the kind of, you know, magnitude of the game with you know all the outside reasons, you know, Franco, and you know, we wanted to go out there and get the win for him. So, you know, everyone kind of kept it together, and after the game, obviously an incredibly special moment in the locker room, and you know, safe to say I'm going to keep this jersey, you know, and probably get to my parents, have it hanging up. You know, it was a really special night.
Well, what did you see? Obviously, you know, George got open, you know, for that touchdown, but just what did you see? Can you kind of break that play down for us?
Yeah, you know, he has a middle read route, so, you know, George did an incredible job of reading that. The backside safety was hanging over to Pat's side. I just wanted to hold him long enough with my eyes to make the throw to George down the seam. You know, it worked out really well. I had that look in practice a few times, so it's great when you work on something, you work real hard at it, and it shows up in the game in the biggest moments, and you win a game like this.
Did you ever go up to the defense and say, hey, just be patient, we're getting things together here, or is that not in the rookie quarterbacks?
I don't think that's in any quarterback. I've never seen any other quarterback do that, man. We're focused on, you know, obviously we're doing everything we can. I'm not going to go reassure the defense that they know what we're doing. They know we're working hard and trying, you know, everything we can to put points on the board. You know, it was a dirty, sloppy game like that, and that's how it was. You know, we had opportunities that we didn't take advantage of, and we need to do that as an offense. You know, but, you know, I'm pretty sure the boys on the defensive side know that we're doing everything we can to put it in the end zone.
As a Main Street bank, PNC has helped over 7 million kids develop their passion for learning through our Grow Up Great initiative. And now, we're providing billions of dollars for affordable home lending programs as part of $88 billion to support underserved communities, including loans for small businesses and low and moderate income areas. So everyone has a chance to move forward financially. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you.
We just like what Rob has been doing. He plays physical. Rob is a guy that has been in continual growth since he's been here. Coming in as an undrafted guy and practice squatter and working his way through, making the team and becoming a core teamer and part-time defender, and now increasingly so, almost an every down defender. I just think what you're seeing is the maturation or growth process of a quality professional. No different than Alex Highsmith, for example.
Yeah, it is a little different when you consider he's undrafted and you know, came here, and I don't think many people expect him to be the amount of tackle machine that he's become. Every week you look at the numbers, and it's pretty impressive what he's been able to do, and he's been on the field a lot over the last 2 weeks, Missy. And boy, number 41, you know, he may not be fleet of foot back and cover linebackers on a regular basis, but when it comes to tackling, he's always right there.
I can't think of Robert Spillane and not think about the game in Tennessee with Derrick Henry, just what he was able to do there. But yeah, as you said, the past 2 weeks, he has not left the field, played 100% of the snaps on defense. He was a leading tackler on Saturday night with 12. Cam Hayward just behind him. He also had a monster night, but I think for Robert, too, you know, Miles Jack has missed some time due to injury, and it has been good to see him, you know, arrow pointed up these last few games. And, you know, going into Baltimore, a team that put 215 up on you the first time you met them this season, the Steelers defense is might have a little chip on their shoulder in terms of, you know, being able to stop the run and wanting to stop the run, because you know exactly what the Ravens are going to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting what's happened with the Steeler run defense. As good as it's been, he had the one game, that Baltimore game you referenced, when they just ran behind Dobbins and Gus Edwards. They didn't have Lamar Jackson, so those guys handled most of it. But they shut down this guy here, Jacobs, to the point of 44 yards, and he was the NFL's leading rusher. They went to Carolina and shut down that team. A week later, Carolina throws up over 300 rushing yards against Detroit. So they're doing something right, and Robert Spillane's right in the middle of it. And you get your opportunities. You don't know when they're going to come. But so far, when he's been in there, and he's had his moments where, again, in coverage, maybe it's not been the best stuff, but he's pretty reliable, and I think Mike Tomlin likes that quality.
Well, I think just for the Steelers defense, it wasn't just Josh Jacobs. They were able to, you know, stop Devontae Adams as well. You knew going in it was like an Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell situation where you had two good guys like that in the air and on the ground. So that was good to see for them. And I just thought, you know, Cam Hayward was, as Craig Wolfley was telling us yesterday, just picking up offensive linemen and throwing them into Derek Carr, just spinning them around. So he had one of those nights, and you know, the middle as well with Larry Ogunjobi. We've seen a lot of Marvin Leal, Isaiah Loudermilk since, you know, the injuries, but it's been good to see for them as well. And you're going to need their A game from the defensive front in Baltimore on Sunday.
And Cam Hayward, you watch him there, he just bowling people over, and he's doing it all game long. Some of his stat lines this week were impressive. A couple of sacks, 3 tackles for losses, 7 tackles, just doing so much. And you talk about a Hall of Fame career potentially. It is certainly arrow pointing up for him in that regard, because some of his best games have been after the age of 30, and you don't really see that with all that many players in the NFL, but he has just gotten better year after year.
And I think, you know, he also is a really good leader for a team that has, as we've documented the ups and downs of this season, you know, he was the one that was announced last during player introductions, ran onto the field with the 32 flag for Franco Harris, and is just one of those guys that can help motivate. He's also one of those guys you will hear from teammates where you make a mistake, you'll get the look. It's almost like, you know, when you get the look from your mom or dad and you're like, oh no, I'm in trouble. But Cam just has a really good pulse of the team, and I think, you know, that's helpful for Coach Tomlin, having a guy like that in the locker room who gets the Steelers' way and can help the young guys around him.
We get the look here once in a while from Gerard Schaefer. When you get that look, you know, he's the man sitting behind all this directing, producing. So the other thing about this defense, we talked about Cam Hayward. What about Cam Sutton? You know, I think he's an underrated kind of guy. You look at what the Steelers defense did, especially as this game progressed. They shut down all aspects. You mentioned Adams, 2 for 15. He had a lot to do with that. How important is Cam Sutton? And he's a guy who I think needs a contract at the end of this year.
I was going to say, you know, I think he's one of those guys that maybe you don't, because there's so many big names on the Steelers defense, I should say, that you don't think, oh, what if he wasn't here? But he's versatile. He can play in a number of different positions on the Steelers defense. He's been here long enough where he knows it so well. Even going back to when he was coming out of Tennessee and the Steelers drafted him, they liked the fact that he had a high football IQ. And he is one of those guys that I would agree with you, the Steelers have to keep heading into this offseason.
And you saw that nice interception there, a tip drill by Arthur Millette. All of that kind of stuff comes into play. And Minka Fitzpatrick's always around the football, so what can you say? But I think Cam Sutton is a very, very important part of this, and just a matter what the numbers will be as this offseason progresses. One of many decisions the Steelers are going to have to make. We're going to take a break here. We'll come back, talk about some other aspects of this, and also we'll take a global look at where the Steelers are and what has to happen over the last 2 weeks. It's amazing how the NFL and its parity, man, every week there are a lot of potentials, but it keeps your interest all the way till the end. We'll talk about it next right here on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler Digital platforms.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located on the North Shore. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be a part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the legendary shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
For sure. Like I said, it was sad to hear the news when I first heard it, but I think it was a good win for the organization. But not only that, it was a good win for Franco. You know what I mean? Him and his family, it's a good way to end the night and to go into Christmas, of course. And try to do as much as we can. I think Coach T said that we're going to give the game ball to his wife. So I think it's a good way for the night to end.
Why were you guys able to get the offense going that late in this game?
Yeah, man. It was a lot of stuff that we did. We didn't capitalize on a lot of stuff. A couple drops, a couple missed assignments, but for us just to stick in there and to gut it out, I think that was good for us. And finish the night too with a win, of course.
I know weather affects both teams, but was that a problem at all, getting the offense kind of going?
Nah, not for the no. I don't think so. Nobody really even said anything like, man, it was cold. Like, nah, we were just. It was cold, but like nobody ever said it. Like it wasn't nothing like we kept bringing up or nothing. It was fine because we already knew what it was going to be, so it wasn't really an issue.
Sorry if you already touched on this, but I heard you mention that you guys are going to give the game ball to Franco's wife. What did it mean to you personally to be able to honor him tonight the way that you guys did with this win?
Yeah, man. Like so when I first got here, man, me and Franco, we've been cool ever since, man. We've been really close. He texted me. Came to a lot of my charity events. He came to a charity event. Like I said, I gave that story when he left his alumni dinner and to come to mine. So we text and then we had that sit down interview to breaking down each other's film. So me and his wife too were really close. So I think Mike T said I'll be the one presenting his wife with the game ball. So for me to even be in that position, I'm honored to even do that. And for us to come out with this win tonight, it was good for the organization.
This stadium is on fire. They're enjoying what they're seeing.
I've been in this league long enough to know that, man, you could roll two teams out on back-to-back days and the game could unfold differently. And so although we did play them a couple weeks ago and there's some things to be gleaned from that, I don't think either party is hanging their hat on how that transpired or that component of it. I just think that particularly in today's scheduling, it happens every year, particularly backloaded divisional games. We're playing, one of these divisional teams in a 2 or 3 week span. It seems like just about every December or so. So I don't think it's new to us. I don't think it's new to any of us in the NFL, but I think we all acknowledge that the texture of one game doesn't necessarily dictate the texture of another.
They've been down this road so many times, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, that they know pretty much probably every trick that the other team's going to offer up. But it's interesting you're going to play two of these in a couple of weeks span, and you're not going to have most likely Lamar Jackson if you're Baltimore. So very interesting component, and the Steelers need to know what they got to go down there and do, which is stop their run game.
Right.
First
no matter who it is.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be the 33rd meeting between Coach Tomlin and John Harbaugh. But as he said, these are just two teams that know each other. It does not matter what happened in the first game. Things can go completely different. And then they finished with the Browns. And it is how the NFL sets up the schedules. Division play is so important in terms of the playoff picture. And that's how they kind of do it. So it'll be interesting to see. It's also why Steelers and Ravens, which who knows if this game will mean anything. It will for the Ravens because they're just one game back from the Bengals, but for the Steelers, they could be mathematically eliminated heading into the game. But the NFL said, no, that's going to be the game we went on Sunday Night Football. It was supposed to be a 1 o'clock game, but got flexed because it's just the rivalry, it's the game, it's the physicality. And what did Coach say? America loves...
They're bloodthirsty.
Yeah, they're bloodthirsty. That's right.
They're bloodthirsty for these kind of matchups, and I do think the physical component it defines this. Over the years, there have been so many plays, so many big hits. You know, from Hines Ward to Ryan Clark to Ray Lewis to you name them. And people remember those plays. They remember those hits. They probably still feel those hits today, all these years later. But these two teams, no secrets here. You're just going to, and this is one of the guys they got to stop, Gus Edwards. Last time here, he and Dobbins did a very good job, even though it wasn't so much the quarterback mobility factor, even though Huntley can do it. It was those guys straight ahead running and opening holes. They got results, big results.
Right, and it does seem like Coach Harbaugh is being very mum on if Lamar Jackson will even practice this week. We'll probably find that out starting tomorrow. But even if it's Tyler Huntley, he's gotten more starting opportunities, more playing opportunities. So he's going to be more comfortable being in charge than he was in the first matchup with the Steelers.
And even though it's a different quarterback, it's kind of the same thing with them because Huntley does have the mobility, and mobility is a key thing when it comes to defining your role in stopping a run offense. It's not just running backs anymore, and Mike Tomlin talked a little bit about the quarterback mobility, regardless who's in there this week for Baltimore.
I think that it's very similar in terms of their ability to utilize the quarterback position by design or to make sure you're responsible for it. And so whether or not the quarterback is carrying the ball or not, you have to be responsible for them as they carry out play fakes and so forth that mirror other coordinated runs. And so whether it's Huntley or Jackson, all of those things have been very similar.
Another thing Mike Tomlin talked about was quick starts. Quite frankly, in a game like this, you don't want to be the team trailing all the time. Even though the last game, I don't think it was out of reach, they tended to go away from their own strength at the time, which was running the football. So a key start is very important.
Yeah, heading into the Raiders game, the Steelers were 5-0 when they scored first. Obviously, that got debunked with that game, but it is so important, and I think that's also how the Ravens game got a little bit out of hand because they were able to, get points on the board and just keep it that way. And we've seen so many times where when you get down so much, you have to start doing what you don't want to do, and that's throwing the ball and not establishing the run. So hopefully that's something the Steelers can bring, that physicality, start with the nastiness in Baltimore that we saw Baltimore do in Pittsburgh, and hopefully, ends in their favor.
And of course, turnovers are big. The Steelers lead the NFL in interceptions. That's a stat that not many people may come up with, but they are pretty good about picking off passes in critical situations. We saw it last week, and they hope that continues this week down in Baltimore. But the key is down and distance as well. Make sure you limit the amount of 3rd and 1s because that's when the Huntley mobility comes into play. And the Steelers over the last several weeks have now improved that stat. They're good at 3rd down conversions themselves, and they've been better stopping 3rd down conversions.
Again, it's, the growth that you want to see, and it's about peaking at the right time. You look at a team like the Detroit Lions, who were, one of the hot teams in the league a little bit earlier on, and then you saw what happened this past weekend. So December football is important. It means that, January football is coming and the playoffs. So it's always a good matchup when it's Steelers and Ravens.
We'll take a break. Final thoughts coming up, and a look at the playoff picture all next.
Game starts at 20, bet slip is empty. I gotta call KG.
KG, what up?
I got nothing for you, Fox.
Oh, come on. Jalen. You want to tell?
Yeah.
Don't call somebody on live TV.
Well, you answered. I have other friends anyway.
Marshawn, Barry.
Listen, I need some tips.
I like L.A.
L.A.?
No, Dallas. That's
Dallas.
Dallas not
Dallas?
the fit. We gotta get to Miami. How about Detroit? Nah, Harry over there.
I'm gonna call y'all right back. Vanessa.
I got a tip for you. Always go with your gut.
I like that. Let's go with our gut.
You mentioned on Monday how important late game execution was against these guys and how that had been a problem in the previous losses to the Raiders in recent years. Down the stretch, what the defense did, and then that final drive, is that an indication of where you guys buttoned up in that regard?
Yeah. I think one of the key things was keeping that deep ball off of us. We did that for the most part, besides the one that I gave up. And then just like you said, executing down the road, keeping them 3 and outs, you know what I'm saying, winning first down. But yeah, I think that was a key part of winning this game.
Mike, was this a fitting ending considering the night?
Say it again.
Was this a fitting ending considering the night? Was it a win it for Franco kind of mentality?
It was just a big game. You know what I'm saying? It's sad what happened with Franco this week. He's a legend in the Pittsburgh community. So we all wore our Franco Harris jerseys to the game in honor of him, in honor of his name. And we just went out there and tried to play Pittsburgh Steelers football.
You guys, Devontae Adams had 9
those are the game plan to limit him when the Raiders try so many different things to get him.
We had safeties going down to him on first and second down, third down. We were having doubles on them, and then telling everybody else they had to win the one-on-ones.
How does the communication work all week long to do that many different things to cover up that guy?
There's a lot of communication because it's different doubles, different looks. You know what I'm saying that we do, but we do it a good amount throughout the season, so it's easy.
You guys have done such a good job on tight ends all year. Waller is definitely a threat. Mm-hmm. Was he a big key, and how does he compare to the rest that you've seen this year?
He's a great tight end. He's athletic. He has great hands, great speed. He's a big body, so it's tough. It's tough to cover. You know, that was my matchup for the game. I did a pretty good job besides the one deep ball that they got to him. He gets paid too. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to make plays, but he's a great player.
Were they forcing it to him, you think?
They're trying to get it to him because he's a playmaker. You know what I'm saying? Especially on third down.
You like that challenge? Going against guys like that?
Oh yeah, I love it. That's what I play the game for.
For over 30 years, Steelers Digest has been delivering black and gold news to your doorstep. Photography, game recaps, opinion, and statistics presented in a colorful, easy-to-read format. Don't miss another issue. Subscribe today at Steelers-Digest.com.
Bob Pompiani and Missy Matthews back with you as we round third, head home in this edition of the Mike Tomlin press conference. And now we're talking about possibilities. And first and foremost, the Steelers have got to win both of their games. But let's just take it 1 week at a time, Missy. So if you're a Steeler fan watching out there, what do you have to root for on Sunday?
Well, the Chargers winning last night did not help things. As you said, the Steelers have to beat the Ravens, but then, Tua is back in concussion protocol. You would need the Dolphins to not win and also the Jets. So it'll be, one of those things where I think, people will be watching football all weekend again, similar to this past weekend, because there's so many different playoff scenarios for different teams. And then, it gets crazy like week 18 last year where it's like this game can't end in a tie or you need a tie to make it in.
Right.
So, the Steelers' playoff chances last year, even heading into that Week 18 matchup in Baltimore, was still slim. They needed a number of things to happen, and luckily for them, they did.
Yeah, and they needed Indianapolis to go down to Jacksonville and lose to a bad Jacksonville team at the time, and they got trounced in that one. And Carson Wentz got intercepted early and often. But, yeah, the Jets have got to go to New England and lose. They have Mike White at quarterback now. They've benched, basically, Zach Wilson. And the other one is Tua Tagovailoa, as you mentioned, in the concussion situation. They play Seattle. The Jets play Seattle.
The Jets play Seattle.
So Seattle's one of those teams you never know what you're going to get out of.
Right.
So who knows? But if those two things happen, the Sunday night game then becomes big and meaningful still.
Absolutely. And as we said, the NFL loves drawing people in. It's why Week 18, nobody knows what day of the week they're playing yet, what time, because it matters so much.
Missy, thanks. It's been fun. Always look forward to next year. One more, maybe more. We'll find out. Thanks for joining us on this Mike Tomlin press conference.